You're standing in the tunnel under the arena, and the sound coming through the stone is something you feel in your chest before you hear it. Tens of thousands of people screaming for blood, and a good portion of them are screaming for yours. Your mouth is dry. Your hands won't stop sweating around the grip of your sword. Everything you've ever been told says you walk out onto that sand and either you kill or you die. Here's the part nobody warns you about. The fight out there is probably not what kills you. The thing that actually ends most gladiators is quieter, slower, and a great deal worse. And it's waiting for you whether you win today or not. Let's burn down the Hollywood version first, because it's been lying to you. The movies sell you a world where two men walk in, one walks out, and the arena floor is a meat grinder running all day. The real numbers tell a different story. In the 1st century, a gladiator who stepped onto the sand had only around a 1 in 10 chance of dying in any given match. 1 in 10. Those are odds you could live with, fight after fight, for years. So why weren't gladiators dropping like flies? Follow the money, because that's the whole secret. A trained gladiator was expensive, brutally expensive. He represented months, sometimes years, of feeding, housing, and specialized training, all paid for by the man who owned the gladiator school. Sending him out to be casually slaughtered was like buying a racehorse and shooting it after one lap. The owner wanted his investment to come back alive so it could fight again and keep earning. Even the rich man sponsoring the games often had to compensate the school heavily if a fighter was killed. So the dirty commercial truth under all that glory is this: dead gladiators were bad for business. The system was quietly rigged to keep you breathing because you were worth more with a pulse. So you might walk off that sand today. Don't relax yet. Because surviving the fight and surviving the day are two very different things, and this is where the floor drops out. Say it goes badly. Say you're knocked down, disarmed, your opponent's blade at your throat, and you're still alive only because the crowd hasn't decided yet. Now your fate hangs on a mob's mood and a sponsor's thumb. Fight well, show courage, and you might be spared even in defeat, sent back to heal and fight another day. But fight like a coward, bore them, disgrace yourself, and the verdict comes down, and there is no appeal. And the way they made sure of death was its own piece of theater. Stay with me, because this is where the arena shows its real face. The fallen weren't always finished off cleanly out on the open sand. The body was dragged to a back room, a grim little chamber the Romans called the spoliarium, the stripping place. And to confirm a man was truly dead and not faking, a figure in costume, often dressed as a demon of the underworld, would step up and strike the body in the skull with a heavy mallet. Then the throat might be cut, to be certain. Archaeologists who've examined gladiator graves have found exactly this kind of evidence. Single, deliberate blows to the head, the signature of a death that was administered, not won. The crowd up in the sunlight saw glory and mercy and drama. The truth was finished in a dark room with a hammer. Sit with how that reframes the whole spectacle. The arena was the show. The killing was often the cleanup, done quietly, off to the side, like taking out the trash after the party. You weren't a warrior dying gloriously in combat. You were a performer being put down after a bad performance. But let's say you're good. Let's say you win, and win again. And the crowd loves you. And you walk back into the school night after night, with your skin mostly intact. You've beaten the 1 in 10. You've avoided the hammer. You're going to be fine, right? This is where the real killer has been standing in the corner the whole time, patient, certain, the thing that took more gladiators than any sword ever did. Your wounds. And to understand the wounds, you have to understand where you went home to. Not a barracks of noble warriors, a lockup. Many gladiators slept in cramped cells, sometimes shackled, in a school run like a prison crossed with a stable. You'd been branded, you were watched, and you were drilled until your body moved on instinct. The food was deliberately heavy and starchy to pack on a layer of fat over the muscle. a living cushion so that cuts bled dramatically for the crowd without slicing straight into anything that mattered. You were being fattened and conditioned like an animal, your whole body engineered for the show. So when you came home torn open from a fight, you came back to a hot, crowded, far from sterile room to lie in your own sweat while your flesh decided whether to heal or to turn. Out there in the sand, the cuts and gashes feel survivable, and many of them were. But this is a world with no antibiotics, no understanding of germs, no clean anything. A wound that doesn't kill you in the arena has days to fester in the heat. It swells, it reddens, it weeps, it stinks, and the infection creeps inward until the fever takes you, shaking and delirious on a cot, far from any cheering crowd. The gladiator schools actually had some of the best doctors of the ancient world, precisely because keeping these men alive was so profitable, and even they were fighting infection with little more than wine, herbs, careful stitching, and luck. A blade you laughed off on the sand could rot you to death over the following week. The sword was the easy part. What grew in the wound afterward was the patient executioner. And even if your wounds healed clean, time itself was hunting you. The records we have suggest most gladiators died somewhere between their 20th and 30th birthday, often after anywhere from 5 to 30-odd fights. Think about that arc. You don't get a long career and a comfortable retirement. You get a handful of years where every single bout is another spin of that 1 in 10 wheel, another set of wounds to survive, another infection to dodge. Roll the dice enough times and the math stops being your friend. The slow grind of repeated combat, repeated injury, and repeated healing wore men down until something, a blade, a fever, a hammer, finally caught up. You weren't living a life. You were running down a clock. And the worst part? A lucky few didn't just survive. They became famous. Crowd favorites, sex symbols, even. Their names scratched onto walls. Their sweat supposedly bottled and sold. And that fame was the trap that kept the whole machine turning, because it sold the lie to every desperate, enslaved, or broke young man that the arena was a path to glory. Win enough, and maybe you'd be handed the wooden sword that meant freedom. A handful actually were, but for most, the glory was the bait, the 1 in 10 was the hook, and the fever or the hammer was the bill that always, eventually, came due. So no, most gladiators did not die the way you've been shown, 2 men entering and 1 heroic survivor leaving in a spray of sand and applause. Most of them died later and quieter and uglier. Dispatched in a back room when they bored the crowd. Burned up by an infection a week after the wound. Ground down to nothing before they were 30 by a life that used their bodies up and threw them out. Rome dressed all of it in spectacle and called it sport. Underneath the spectacle was a business that bought human beings, kept them alive exactly as long as they were profitable, and had a man with a mallet standing by for the day they weren't. If you'd have survived your first match, stick around, because next time we're stepping into another corner of Rome that the history books made a great deal cleaner than it actually smelled.